Welcome back to Capitol Tide, a statewide look at politics. I'm Tim Boyum. One North Carolina congressman was elected to the Republican leadership in the U.S. House last week as the new Congress is set for its new term. He's chairman of the Republican Study Committee, and he joins us from Greensboro tonight. Congressman Mark Walker, Republican of the 6th District. Congressman, good to see you. Congratulations, and thanks for a little time.
Thanks, Tim. It's always a privilege to be with you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I guess just tell us what this Republican Study Committee is.
Well, historically, it was launched several decades ago in the Nixon administration, and it's kind of the conservative caucus or the conservative conscience of the entire Republican conference. There's 41 members. We have about 165 right now members. Some of the freshmen will sign up as well. And it's really to lay out policy that we believe is the best conservative approach for government.
I mean this with all due respect, but how does a guy that's just going into his second term get elected to a position like this?
Well, it's a great question. I believe this is the first time in history that this has happened, and I hope it's for a couple things. One, I believe we have an approach that builds relationship, but I also believe that authenticity is very important, and following through on your word, maybe a combination of those things allows us to be able to run for it, and then last Thursday morning have success in winning the chairmanship.
Why did you want it?
Because I believe it's important for our voice to be heard when it comes to the conservative line. Now, when we first announced, there was a lot of thought that Secretary Clinton would be the next president. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing our part to be the barometer and pushing back against more of the overreach of government, the regulatory process that we've talked about. We thought it might be 4 more years of the same. Now, since that has been turned, obviously we still have an important role to make sure that we are leading in the conservative aspect, but it's going to be a new dimension now with the new administration.
I understand since the election you've had the chance, probably because of this new role, to talk with Vice President-elect and the President-elect as well. Tell me about those conversations if you can.
Well, with the President-elect, it's been brief, just talking about where his heart is, some of the people that he's talking to as well, and in fact, Vice President-elect Pence, they're kind of picking the best of the best when it comes to conservatives in the House that they're interviewing as far as part of this new administration. I think it's going to be a great thing when it comes to just the times that we've been able to talk with the Vice President-elect Pence. I will tell you, I'm the most optimistic that I have been for our country in a long time. This is a gentleman who is solid in his convictions, solid in his faith, and even the way he responded last week when he was at the Broadway play, just the grace that he extended, that's the kind of leadership that I believe our country needs.
All right, so you were on the committee earlier this year that got to question FBI Director Comey, and today Donald Trump has basically said that he doesn't care about seeing any further prosecution of Hillary Clinton. So what's your take on that today?
No, and I respect the condolences, if you will, that he's offering, or the olive branch, I should say, but we still have a duty to do on the House Oversight Committee, specifically in the arena of Clinton Foundation. We don't want to create a winch hut, but we also have to make sure that people do not take advantage when they're serving in government. No one is above the law, and that's our job to make sure that we at least do our homework, where there's been no funny business, that there's not kind of different connections, where somebody has been profiting, or to use the term, the cliche sometimes, the pay to play. It's at least our job on the House Oversight Committee, the only committee that has full subpoena power, to do due diligence in making sure there was no laws broken.
So did Donald Trump break a promise then?
I don't know that he's broken a promise there. I don't know. Sometimes we can't even make a long-term decision until we're able to see the evidence. And it may be that if we're able to produce evidence that there was some wrongdoing, there may be some willingness to change the heart or mind.
One of the other things with the Republican Study Committee, a big portion of that is that your group wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump has basically said that he wanted to do the same, but in recent interviews he has said that he wants to keep the under 26 provision in, as well as the pre-existing conditions provision. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, I would say this. I would modify that a little bit, Tim, to say originally those were Republican ideas anyway, to extend ages on insurance, to do away with any kind of violations or prohibitions when it comes to pre-existing conditions. Those ideas, along with others, we're entertaining it, but the time has come. Listen, even the president, the governor of Minnesota the other day, the Affordable Care Act has crippled small businesses as well as individuals, and it's time to repeal this thing as soon as possible, and I think we're going to do that very early on in this administration.
How do you do that and not have a plan in place? Or do you think all of a sudden there's going to be quickly this plan to put in place to replace it immediately?
Well, there's a framework already that exists, but I would liken it to this. It's the same thing with one of the DOL rules. I was talking with a gentleman just yesterday. We've got a huge case where small businesses are really going to be targeted as they've grown over 50, whether it's the Affordable Care Act or other fiduciary rules. Right now, we just have to put a stopgap, maybe even a pause. We can come up with a different plan, but those that are being targeted or really hurt by it, we want to do away with that where they can begin to breathe and grow again, and then as we go, we'll put the pieces and parts together.
So assuming that it does happen, and let's say it is a better plan, what happens though to these people, and what do you say to these people that were beneficiaries of expanded Medicaid or got more money to help them basically pay for their insurance? What do you tell those people that would lose that?
The great question. Our job is not to rip the rug out from anyone, and we've got to take a case-by-case basis. We don't want to send anybody packing at the road, and we know that there are, even though it's the minority instead of the majority of the population have had some benefit from it, we've got to look at that. And I said that will take some time. It won't be happening overnight, but at least we're getting out of the system with at least some kind of a plan that begins to bring some relief to individuals and small businesses.
Lastly, we're doing a story today about Thanksgiving and how people are able to avoid politics or have conversations that aren't hard. Are you going to be able to avoid politics this Thanksgiving?
Absolutely not. When you are the lone representative in the family, and I come from two large families, and we'll split up some time at both the in-laws as well as my family, there are plenty of questions, and usually mom drives the toughest ones.
That is true, I'm sure. Thank you, sir. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and I look forward to many more conversations in the year ahead.
Same to you, Tim. God bless.
Thank you. Time for one more.